Hi, Molls. How are
Yeah,
you?
I'm good. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. Hi, Gems. How you doing?
Yeah, really good. Really good. Welcome, everybody. It's been a really interesting week. I think for everybody, especially sort of within the market. So I think today's going to be super, super interesting. But yeah, what about you, Molls? How's everything
Yeah,
going with
good. I've
you?
I've had a very interesting week, which we'll probably touch upon as we go through the call, and just how things can look one way one minute and how they can look a completely different way in another moment, and that's the kind of freedom of mind that we're talking about here. But we'll dig deeper, much deeper into this on the call. But yeah, the week has really kind of shown me areas where I know that that's true. I can see it for myself again and again and again.
Yeah, it's just like constant, like understanding the three principles. I've had so many insights this week where I've got caught up, and then all of a sudden, I pulled myself out of it so quickly, and then I felt the most sort of freedom of mind. And I'll explain a bit more about that later. But it's like that change is so, it's not dramatic, but it's like, oh wow, it's sort of gone now, and I feel really free and relaxed and able to sort of get on with things in a normal way. But yeah, today is really about sort of explaining that your mentality, it doesn't have to be tied to what's going on with the markets. There's been lots going on, and this episode is really to look at how to free your mind and what is freedom of mind. So any questions, if you guys want to sort of send anything over to me, we'll go through questions at the end. We've already got some really good ones, and we'll take requests. But yeah, really looking forward to this one and glad to have you all here. It's going to be a really nice, relaxing hour. There's loads of spaces on at the moment talking about crypto and the market. So this one, we just want you all to relax and yeah, really enjoy it. And if you hear anything or take anything from it that really works for you, then please share, because we really want as many people to feel good in this moment as possible, because we know some people are struggling. So yeah, thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. If you can share, if you feel like sharing with a tweet right now, that would be amazing. Just to get more people to join us, because we do feel this is a really important message. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope after the hour of listening to us, you feel more relaxed and your mind is calmer. And just use this hour to let your mind slow down. And what I want you to do is, I don't want you to listen to what we're talking about and try and analyze it, because really it's the analytical mind that we're trying to calm down here. If you can listen to me and Gem like as if you were listening to rain falling, so you're not listening with attachment, you're just listening to and just to see, just to experience. And it's kind of a deeper way of listening. And just know that, everything is okay, everything will always be okay, and you have everything that you need within you to deal with anything that life is throwing at you. And what's really interesting, Jem spoke about the markets, and we can really feel like those outside experiences can affect us, and temporarily it appears that they can. But you'll know yourselves, there's been times where the markets have been really dumping, and maybe you've lost money, but you've been okay. And there's been other times possibly where you've been making a lot of money and you haven't been okay, because your experience ultimately comes from you. And we'll see that in all aspects, all areas of life. And I think that's really why, Jem and I love this subject. We love talking about it. We love sharing it, because really freedom isn't what it looks like. We think that freedom is going to be the amount of numbers we have on a screen, be it dollars or Bitcoin. When I get to this amount, the freedom will lie there. When I have the perfect relationship, freedom will lie there. It's always an outside thing, and we're always projecting it, and it's always in the future. And what you'll all find is that freedom never appears, because it didn't exist outside of you in the first place. Freedom's always an inside job. And I think when we begin to wake up to that, then we can see that, yeah, we want to play in the world. Yeah, we want to play in the markets. We want to have fun. We want to have relationships. But we begin to be aware of our resilience. We begin to be aware that, okay, so if it's always me, if it's always my thinking appearing as the outside world, then I know that can always change. So it doesn't matter really what's going on in the world. Of course, we will want to have a perfect life, but we have moments of perfection, I believe, but it isn't a permanent state. We all know that life has its ups and downs. And when we begin to understand the system that we are, the thought system, this energy behind life, this who we really are, then that becomes much easier to navigate, because what we begin to see is that we're only ever suffering from our thinking. You know, it's so interesting, but it's so true. So you can see that you probably had some difficult experiences in your lives, and what you'll notice is during those difficult experiences, you haven't actually stayed in one state of mind. You've probably been in some certain states of mind through the difficult experience that have appeared as if you were in a low state, but there would have obviously been times that you would have also been laughing, you know, or you would have felt okay. But what happens is when all the thinking comes back in, it's like suddenly we remember. So people can often say, like when they lose somebody close to them, they wake up in the morning and for a moment they're forgotten and they feel okay, and then suddenly they remember and then they feel terrible. It's just beginning to understand how thought operates, what thought is, and how it really influences our state of mind. In fact, more than influences, it creates it. Because again, I'm not saying you're never going to feel anything. You're always going to be up against life. It's always going to have moments of appearing real, and you're going to always have these moments of contraction in your mind, and these heavy feelings. You know, that's part of life. There's no therapy in the world. This is a really important point. There's no therapy in the world that you're going to do that is going to give you the perfect state of mind for the rest of your life. Okay. In fact, sometimes those therapies can make us feel worse because we feel like we're failing if we're not happy all the time. So what we're teaching here is a little bit different. I mean, you'll definitely be a lot happier a lot more often when you understand the teachings. But what will also happen is that you will have moments of sadness, of upset, of anger, but you'll bounce out of them quite quickly. But you'll see them as the most natural, normal part of being human, because that's what we're here to have. We're here to be human. We're here to have the emotions and the experiences. So when we look at freedom of mind, what we're talking about here is it's not circumstantial, it's not material. It isn't dependent on anything outside of you. It's also not dependent on your mind being clear, which is a really interesting thing to explore. And again, anything I tell you, explore for yourself, you know, play with it. But you know, what it is I can have a mind that's quite full and I can have a lot of thinking. But if I'm not buying into that thought, if I'm allowing it to just come and go, that to me is I'm in my freedom of mind. If I'm not believing my thinking, if I'm not taking it seriously, if there's a lightness around my own mind, that is freedom, and that is freedom of mind. What people can get confused by also is that you have to have this very, very clear, quiet mind for freedom. And ultimately that isn't true. The clear, quiet mind isn't freedom. Okay, it isn't. It's again, that would be circumstantial. Yeah, you're going to get every state of mind come and go. It's just the most natural thing in the world. So what we're going to explore also is that there's this observer of mind. So you can observe your own mind, and it's in that observation. That's where we're really looking to for freedom. Because if you can see your mind and it's making a lot of noise and you're not buying into it, then it's no problem. But if your mind is making a lot of noise and you are buying into it, that's the problem. Okay, so there's a deeper aspect to your thought system that maybe you haven't noticed, and I know some of you will because you've been with us since the beginning and you would have listened to a lot of what we've pointed to. But for some that haven't, really, it's you know that there's an observer within you. You know that there's something that sees your thinking. That's the deeper aspect. That's the deeper space that we can go to. So if we're observing our noisy mind, we're not getting caught up. We're not taking any notice. It's not creating feeling. Again, it's like birds flying through the sky. You know, I say this as a metaphor with my clients, that the sky is neutral to the birds flying through it. They could be making as much noise as possible, but the sky will just allow it and let it pass. That is us when we're in the observer of our mind. Now, the other state that we have is where we're caught up in our mind, where we're believing our thinking, when we're thinking that thought is true. So again, freedom of mind, it is always available, but we're not always seeing it. But it doesn't look the way that maybe some of you have thought it would look. Okay, it's not a silent mind. Now, a silent mind is beautiful and it is available and it will come and go, but that can't be freedom, because again, we don't want it to be circumstantial. So what we begin to wake up to is that, well, there's an inner journey, there's an inner process, there's it is an awakening to who we are that allows us to really begin to explore thought. And I know I've said this on many calls, but it's so true. It's like, up until I found this understanding, I'd had so many conversations around what my mind was saying, but I'd had no conversations around what thought was. It's like I'd never really explored this idea of what is thought. How does it create my experience? Where does it come from? And in that conversation and in truly seeing what thought was, that's where I found my freedom of mind. And again, what Gem and I was saying earlier is, of course we're human. Of course we get caught up. I've had a few experiences this week where, one especially where it looks like it felt like I'd projected a part of my happiness into something occurring and happening in my life. And suddenly that all fell apart. Okay. And that wasn't going to happen. So for me, there was a temporary upset, but what it allowed me to also do was go deeper again and see, hold on, that couldn't contain my well-being and my happiness. That's always with me. That's always here in the moment. I'd made up an idea of something that I'd wanted, and then that looked like it was going to come into creation. And when it didn't, I got upset. So what did I really get upset about? I got upset about my own thought system. I got upset about a construct of thought that I'd created, projected into the future and wasn't happening. And then I'd come back and I'd say, well, because that's not happening, then I'm going to be unhappy. But, this understanding snapped me out of it very, very quickly, to the point where there's been about 3 moments of upset and different emotion around it. But within, not even an hour, I'm back. I'm seeing what's true. I'm seeing that I'm okay. I'm seeing that life is actually working out perfectly. That's the other thing. So my freedom in that was not me getting what I wanted. My freedom in that is seeing that is how it was supposed to be. And another deeper level of freedom was understanding my own system, understanding my thought system, understanding how easy it is to make things up and to really live by them, and then really kind of lower your state of mind when you're not getting what you want. Okay, but we don't need to do that. We can play with life. We can, again, it's not like I'm not going to plan things again and look forward to them and hope they happen. But every time it happens, there's less attachment. It's like the disappointment is far more temporary than it ever would have been. Because I now know who I am. I now bounce back much quicker than I ever did. Okay, and what's really interesting about this system that we're talking about, because it feels like, oh, do I have to gauge my thought? Do I have to watch my thinking all the time? Well, that can lead to more stress and more thinking. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about here is something a bit deeper. How you will know if you're feeling freedom of mind or not will be how you feel. Okay? So when I had these moments of upset, and I would call them a contraction. That's what I term them as. When I had those moments of contraction, my feelings went down. My feeling state dropped. So in one, I was upset and I was sad, and in another, I felt quite angry. That wasn't actually telling me about the event not happening. That was actually telling me that my thinking was going in the wrong direction. Okay? When my feeling lifted, when my mood lifted and I felt better, that's telling me that I'm seeing things more clearly. So if you can gauge what you're seeing with your feelings, that's going to be the easiest way to go. Because what we've done with feelings up to now is we've had them and we've kind of made them about the world. Well, I'm feeling this because of A, B, or C. I'm feeling this because that happened, or I'm feeling this because that didn't happen. This system simplifies the whole thing, because this system says, I'm feeling this because I'm overthinking, or my thinking is going in the wrong direction, or I'm misusing this beautiful power of thought that I have. And that really makes it easier to navigate because we bounce out quite quickly then, because we're not looking at the world to give us what we want for our feeling to change. We're seeing it's an internal process, and feeling can change very quickly. Okay? And the feeling that you're looking for cannot be found with your intellect. It's not about your trying to find it with your mind. Again, it's like we want to bypass the mind. It's one that rises from within. You know, and you've had that feeling. You may have attributed it to the world, but when we feel at one, when we feel peaceful, when we feel content, when you're there, that's when you're in your freedom of mind. That's when you've dropped out of your conceptual mind. That's when you've let go of all the things that you think and you just be. Okay? And the only place that feeling is available is here and now. Okay? It's the feeling before the form. It's that feeling cannot exist in a future that you're projecting it onto. It's impossible. It's the dropping away of the ideas of the future and the past that the feeling is found. But we've all been conditioned to look for it in the future, to look for it in material gain, to look for it in other people. But like, how wonderful if you've got it all along and you don't have to play that game. Now you can still do all those things, but again, we come back to less attachment. We come back to allowing ourselves to play rather than making it a serious thing to get what we want in the world. Because how are we going to get more of what we want? By being playful. Seriousness weighs us down. It has the opposite effect of what we think it does. And I tweeted something earlier, and it was, life is waiting for you in this moment, not in tomorrow, for tomorrow does not exist. Not in the castles that your mind wanders into and makes appear real. There is only this, and there is only now. And that is always true. We're going from a time-based model to a presence model, to a now model. It's all here. It can't exist anywhere outside of you. So if you're projecting your freedom of mind onto the world, you're going in the wrong direction. Freedom of mind is the light within you. It's who you are before what you think. Yeah, and then you can just let thought do what it needs to do. You know, it's when do I suffer in my mind? I suffer in my mind when I'm not accepting life as it is. When I'm resistant to life as it is. Yeah, non-acceptance equals suffering. This beautiful understanding unravels the mind. The mind becomes like a tightly coiled spring, you know, with all the thoughts and beliefs and the projections that we have. And then suddenly we come across something like this, and it begins the unwinding process. It begins the releasing process. It begins us to let go of all of that. Because again, it's all here right now. And it's so easy to get caught because there's shiny, bright lights in this world. You know, the outside world looks like it contains the things that we want. It's so easy to be distracted by it because the inner world's invisible, and this is all visible, and it's here, and we see it, and we want it. We want to play, and we want this, and we want that, and that'll make me happy, and that'll make me well, but everything starts from going in. We get blinded by the world of form and forget so easily that there is a world within us that has everything that we're looking for. And that's why we share this. This is what this is. This is the exploration that leads to freedom. And the interesting thing about this freedom is you could be put in prison and still have it. because it's a deeper freedom than the world can offer. And how can I say that and know that? Because, you know, I've listened to young men that were in gangs, that were in prison, that had very violent and difficult lives, and then found this understanding and transformed, and have said, I've heard the words out of their mouths, I realised that there was something in this understanding when I was happier in prison than I had ever been in the outside world, because the freedom that they found was within them. Okay, and I'm not saying go to prison to find it, by the way, but it's just that seeing it a little bit deeper. It's just beginning to say, okay, you know, these kids weren't lying. They've come out of prison and they've changed their lives. You know, it's deeply transformational to not project your well-being onto the world. It's deeply transformational to understand who you really are. Yeah, life isn't going to always work out the way you want it to. I've had that experience this week, but I'm still okay. I still know that everything I need is within me. I know that that is always true. Don't have to attach my well-being anywhere. You know, it's so interesting. Life can change so incredibly quickly. Okay, so on the inside and on the outside. So for me, when I woke up to this understanding 9 years ago, it was so quick. I had an insight, and everything looked different. I had an insight into thought, and it went from like night and day. It went from darkness to light, and the whole world changed because of what I saw. Yeah, that can also happen on the outside world. You know, we know that there's these moments in our lives where everything's changed. Maybe you've lost someone. Maybe it's a breakup. That's the nature of it. That's the nature of life, inside and outside. It can change, but if we're not so attached to an imagined future, we can flow with that change. We can be like water, as the saying goes. We can allow ourselves to glide gracefully through what life throws at us, not without its upsets, not without its challenges, but we know that when that challenge comes, we have what's within us to bounce back. It's really interesting how powerful thought is, because what I will say is the moment where I had my upset this week, it didn't look in that moment of upset like I was going to bounce out of it quickly. It looked like that upset was permanent, because that's the power of thought. So when we're in it, it's like, well, I feel like this, and this feeling is real, and I'm really sad, and that's just how I feel now. Now, in the throes of thought and feeling appearing real, that's all there was, because that was the experience that I was in. But when I came out of it within an hour, it was like, oh, well, that wasn't true. But thought is so potent, thought is so compelling, that will look completely true while we're in it. Okay, but there was that moment of clarity. There was that moment when I saw what was really happening, when I saw it was coming from me, that it was my thought system, that it was my expectation, that there couldn't be anything but my creation within my feelings. Then suddenly it just disappeared. I was like, oh, actually, I'm fine. You know, you can look like a bit of a nutcase when you know this understanding, because you can literally go from devastation to happiness very, very quickly. But, you know, that's a wonderful thing, because if you think how long we can stay and wallow in our feelings, and how unhelpful that is. I mean, we all like a little wallow now and then, but like, snap out of it. You know, get out of it as quickly as possible, because there's life to be lived. And that's it. It's that bouncing back into life and living it as well as you can. Again, always challenges, but life is always waiting. It's our thoughts that cloud. It's our thoughts that stop us from seeing it. Because actually, what are we always seeing? Think about it. We're always seeing our thoughts. We're always experiencing thought. That's what's in the room right now with you. You're experiencing this conversation through thought. Now your reaction to this conversation will come from you. And all these little circles will have a different feeling about this conversation. You'll have a different experience of what I've said. You'll hear different things. It's so interesting. I did 4 days training last week, and some of it was recorded. And I went with a friend of mine, and she said to me, "Did you hear this part?" And I went, "No." She went, "I've listened to the recording, and they spoke about." I'm not going to explain it. They spoke about clouds in clear boxes. I do not recall that whatsoever. And it's so interesting. But there'll be other things that I heard that other people didn't hear, because we're hearing what we hear because it's coming from our thought system. It's coming from our listening. It's coming from us. So it's always upstream, always back to thought, always back to who we really are. You know, there's such an amazing, I'm not sure, I suppose power. There's an amazing power in seeing this, and seeing the creative potential that you are, and seeing that nothing's fixed, nothing's permanent. We bounce back very quickly. We're always experiencing our own minds, and that there is only ever this. There is only ever the here and now. You know, it's even who you think you are isn't fixed. Who you think you are is a set of thoughts and beliefs and conditions that you've just taken on as you've grown up. That's all up for dissolving. That's all up for not being true. That's all up for change. It's like, oh, I'm just this kind of person. Really? You know, when I work with people, I go, is that true? Really interestingly, it's like you can work with someone and they can see in certain areas where they're kind of putting on an act in a certain way, or like maybe an act is too strong a word, maybe labeling themselves, oh, that I'm in mum role when I'm like that, or I'm in work role when I'm like that, and they can see the different characters that they're playing in different aspects of their life. But there'll be an aspect of themselves that they feel is real, and usually that aspect that they feel is real is a negative thing. It's like, well, I'm an insecure person. Well, actually, I'm naturally depressed, or any different way that it manifests. And I go, but do you not see that's also another part that you play? Do you not see that's another character? Who you are is before the form. It's before the personality. It's before who you think you are. Who you think you are is made up. Who you really are is before all of that. Doesn't have any neurosis, doesn't have any anxiety. That comes in with the character, with the overactive mind that we believe when we believe what it's saying. That's where that comes from. It's like, and we can see all these different aspects of the self, and all these different parts that we play, and when we begin to see it, it's like, oh, well, I'm really, really happy when I'm dancing, or, you know, when I forget about myself, because when there's less of you, the character in the room, the happier that you are, because you're more in touch. You're more, who you really are is more revealed. Okay, so this you're not so much into playing the character. You've forgotten about the character. You've become back to the truth of who you are. And in that truth, you're at one, you're peaceful, you're content, and you're happy. So all the ideas of who you think you've got to be fall away. It's in the, you know, that's why those moments where we get present, when we're at a concert, when we're dancing, when we're walking in nature, whatever that is for you, the reason that you feel at one and peaceful is because you have checked out. You are at one with your experience. Yeah, that's where it lies. That's where what you're looking for lies. It's not in the world, it's within you. That's the freedom. It's such a contradiction. It's like the less of you around, the freer you'll feel. But it's so true. I experience it. I see, oh, okay, what happened here? I didn't feel amazing because I got more into myself. I've got more into my intellect. I've gone more into the world. I've felt more peaceful and at one and blissful because there's less of the self around. I've forgotten that I'm molsing, and I've just allowed myself to be. And that's the beauty in this understanding too, because it's that simplicity, back to the simplicity of that's all it takes. It just takes a moment of the conceptual mind, including all your concepts of self falling away, and that attachment to who you think you are, and you can break free. So attachment to who you think you are and your identity create another prison of the mind. That's the prison to break free from. It's like, what if you're not that? What if you're not an anxious person? What if you just have some anxious thinking sometimes? What if you're not a depressed person? What if you just have a low state of mind sometimes? You know, all these things that we think we are. It's like, they're not actually true. They're just manifestations of consciousness appearing as real in the moment. We don't have to become attached to them. We don't need to create a prison out of them. You know, that 7.5 billion people are actually living in their separate realities, but it's actually one shared being. There's a oneness there. That's the direction to go in. That's the calling home. That's where, you know, the only way out is in. I just know that that's so true. I've seen, if I want to create change in my life, I have to create change from within. I have to go deeper. I have to see more of the illusion and come back and see more deeply this essence of who I am, this soul, this spirit, this oneness. I never feel peaceful if I'm going in the other direction and trying to have the world create my feelings. In fact, if I'm going in that direction, I'm getting stuck and I'm getting lost. And sometimes what we do, we get on the hamster wheel because it's like the world isn't creating the feeling that I want. I need more world. No, we don't need more world. We need less world. We need less moles. We need less gems. You know, it's coming back into. It's coming back into again this truth and this essence. And the answer's never in the intellect in what we're looking at here. The intellect's brilliant, great for working things out. You know, it's great for working things out in the material world, for equations and numbers and, you know, all the practical things. But it's a useful tool, but it shouldn't be our master. And unfortunately for many, it's become the master. So again, that unwinding. Okay, this is something that really helped me was, and I heard one of my teachers, Michael Neal, say it was when I get caught up, the most valuable thing I have now is I know where to look. And what we're teaching you here, what we're sharing is the knowing where to look. Because it's so easy to be lost and keep going outside of yourself for more and more answers, and to try and find answers that don't exist in the world when you've really just got to come home. So knowing where to look for your well-being, that's a game changer. It's like suddenly I'm not going out there. I'm not trying to fix the world. I'm not trying to change other people. I'm not even trying to change myself. I know that all I need to do is come home. I need to go to within. That's everything that I'm looking for is in who I am pre-thought, before thought. That's where to go. Unfortunately, we get so caught up. We believe that it's in our personal thought, in our intellect, that we're going to find the answer to well-being. Well-being doesn't live there. If it did, we wouldn't be in an epidemic of mental health issues, and we are. Because everybody's going to the wrong place. It's this deeper aspect of mind that we need to go to reveal this well-being. And people who don't realise there's a deeper aspect to your mind, that there's something more. They're looking in the intellect. So again, it can really, like for me, in moments over this week, It really looked like there was something to get over, but there wasn't. There was just something to see differently. There was just something to see from that deeper space and not from my personal intellect. Not from where I wanted things to happen, more from where things really come from, which is deeper within me. So that's all that had to happen. I had to just touch that space and see that everything was okay. My emotions settled down, my feelings settled down, I felt okay. Yeah, and that's brilliant, because then I'm not a victim to other people. I'm not a victim of the world. It's all back to me. I have everything that I need within me. You have well-being, okay? Every one of you has well-being. Whether it's covered up or not right now, it doesn't matter. It's there. And it's knowing that it's there and exploring that will change everything for you. So again, I say on every call, don't just believe me. Find out for yourself. Yeah, play with it. Okay, that woman on Spaces, she said this was all thought. Let me see, is this really thought? Oh, and when you're with other people, notice their thinking. Oh, look what they're making up. So we're always making things up. It's really interesting when you start to see it, because it's like, bloody hell. Wow. I make a lot up. Wow. They make a lot up. You can see all these projections into the future and these misunderstandings and these assumptions and that everybody makes. But suddenly you wake up to it. Again, this is a waking up process. You wake up to this power of thought. You begin to see it. You're not so caught up in the content and what thought is saying. The freedom of mind is seeing what thought is doing and not getting caught up in what it's saying. It's the fact that we think that's amazing, not necessarily what we're thinking. So we come to that space. We go deeper. It's always deeper to go. For me, 9 years in 20 years, I'll still be saying, I know there's still deeper to go. There's more I can see. Because this deeper aspect of mind that we're talking about, this deeper aspect of self, is part of this infinite universe that kind of can blow our minds a bit when we think about it. But that's where it is. That's what we're talking about here. It's more than the physical. There's something more there. We know it. We know it when we shut our eyes and we feel that we're alive. We know it when we look at nature. We know it if we have spiritual explorations. There's something more. And it's in that more where this understanding lies. That's where we're looking. That's what we want to see. That's what we want to explore. That's where we want to go. And that's what Gem and I invite you to do with us. That's this exploration. That's these conversations that we have. And to me, it's one of the most valuable things that we can do for ourselves, because it simplifies life and it makes life easier. So I'm going to hand back over to Gem.
Oh, that was wonderful, Molls. I feel so unminded. Yeah, and I a lot of things as you were going through, I really connected with, especially the whole playing the character thing, and I've done a bit of that this week. We've been working on my sensitivity levels, haven't we? Because I've always thought I'm super, super, super sensitive, and it's not done me sort of brilliantly throughout life, because it put me sort of back and forward within victim mode. And if something happened, I would sort of look at everything else and combine them and think, oh God, and it would be a meltdown. Whereas I had a few ups and downs this week, but something happened, and then I got caught up, and it didn't take long, and I realized, okay, I'm doing what I used to do again, and I just need to do nothing. Because I started thinking, how can I make myself feel better? I started thinking, what music should I put on, or should I have a bath? And then I was just trying to fix things with things, and it was very, very quick and clear to me that I needed to do absolutely nothing and just relax. And then I was absolutely fine, sort of really quickly. And I realized that how can we be free from any conditioning if we are seeking, right, let me try and get it right. How can we be free from conditioning if we're seeking better conditioning? That's surely holding us in a space of trying to feel to get to a better place when the place is already here. So when we're saying things like, I must feel better, I must work harder, I must do something, but the thing that I'm talking about getting better, that is the conditioned mind. So that cannot be fixed or broken down. I think I've explained that in the way that I understood it as you were speaking, Molls, but that for me to hear was quite a big thing. Did you hear that the way that I meant it?
Yeah. It's there's nothing to fix because it's a temporary illusion. It's thought coming. Is that what you mean? It's like it's thought appearing as real. That's
Yeah.
the character, and then the next moment it's gone, and we're in a new character. But again, when I said earlier about when people come to me and they can say, well, in this, I know I'm playing a part here and here, but yeah, but the bit I need to fix is the bit that's insecure or anxious, and it's like it's seeing that that's also part of the flow of thought, and it's not true. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like if our mind is not really, so the conditioning that we've got, if we keep thinking that we need to fix it, then that's pulling us further away from who we really are, because there's nothing to fix. So really, we can't break down any conditioning at all, because the conditioning is all in our mind, all up.
Got it. Yes, absolutely.
You would have been able to say that so much clearer.
You don't know that.
I think it though.
Yes. Yeah. There's nothing to fix. Because it's and in fact the thinking that there's something to fix leads us further into the separation. Is going in the wrong direction. Okay, so that's a great point. And one of the aspects of this teaching when people come to me is that you're not broken and you don't need fixing. You're just not seeing clearly, because you cannot fix conditioning. You cannot fix a belief system. It just has to be seen as not true, and then it falls away and it dissolves. Is that good?
Yeah, totally. And it's so interesting is how time goes on, you need sort of a less of a kick up the bottom, because sometimes I'll get a bit stuck and I'll write out a message to you on Twitter, or I'll text you, and by the time I've got to the end of it, I think there's probably no point in sending this, because you're gonna say, Gem, you're being a twat, and I'm gonna realise straight away. And a lot of the time now I don't even send the message, because I know exactly what the answer is, and that is that I'm being a twat. My thinking is not, it's not even my thinking, but I'm holding on to it, believing it, and getting myself carried away. Yeah. So yeah, it's everything's getting better and better. It's like life slowly turning into a fine wine, like it's aging really well, which is really, really beautiful. We've got a few questions about this topic tonight, but if anyone did want to come up and ask anything or DM me, then that's absolutely fine. But Molls, do you want to take some questions?
Absolutely, I love a question.
Okay, well, I might actually be cheeky and do mine first, and it's something that I thought about earlier. Is that there's so many people doing spaces tonight. I looked up and there was sort of 1,000 people in one, 500 in another, and Kaleo started one just before we did. And I was kind of relieved because I know this goes out on Spotify and YouTube and everywhere, and that doesn't bother me at all. But when there's loads of people in here, I get a bit more nervous. And I said, Molls, why do you think it is that I feel a bit more relaxed that there aren't going to be as many people in, although I want so many people to listen because I want them to hear it? And I know that's my shit, but why is that?
Such a great question. It's because it's so interesting. It's because you're in your intellect when you think that. So the intellect works on numbers. You know, it wants, you know, it's the intellect works with measurements and numbers. Our true self is infinite. There is no time, there are no numbers, there are no measurements, okay? But what we do is when we come into our egos and our minds, and we look and we've got to do a talk or we're doing something, and if there's two people, that's fine. I can do that. But suddenly there's 2,000 people, and then that's freaky. The intellect freaks out, the ego freaks out. It's because these numbers appear real, that we're not seeing that it's part of the illusion. So once we see that everything comes from us, and whether it's 2 or 2,000, it can't create our experience, that tends to fall away. I had a horrific fear of public speaking before I came across this understanding. Even if I was in a group and I had to stand up and, you know, what's your name, or, you know, where are you from, or anything like that, my heart would pound. I wouldn't be able to hear anything anyone else was saying when they stood up. I'd just be so fixated on that it was going to be my turn, and I was going to have to stand up, and I was going to have to speak in public. And then when I would do it, my voice would shake. It was so interesting. And then I found this understanding, and I thought, okay, I'm going to have a little coffee morning, and a couple of people might turn up, and yeah, I'll be able to do that. That will be fine. Well, I put on this coffee morning about 8 or 9 years ago, and I think 6 or 8 people turned up, and I was like, fuck, how am I going to do this? All the old thinking kicked in, all the numbers thing kicked in. It's like, oh, it would have been okay if it was 2, but it's 8, and how am I going to do that? And actually, as I sat there in my chair and I just looked at all these lovely faces in my front room, and I thought, oh, they can't create my fear. They're not creating this anxiety that I feel about speaking. How? That's me. That's all me. And it's like, it just really helped. And I was nervous for a few minutes, but then I really got into flow and I began to speak, and it went really, really well. And, you know, up to the point where now I think on a couple of calls we've had like in the hundreds of people on spaces, and I've been absolutely fine. Now, I can always have a moment at the beginning of a talk or a call or a workshop where the first couple of minutes I can feel a little bit nervous, but it doesn't grip me or grab me in the same way that it used to, and it doesn't worry me beforehand. Now, if I had to stand up in front of 3,000 people live, I don't know, maybe it would. But at some point I would see that it was the thought creation and it would fall away, because numbers are irrelevant. They're the mind game. They're not the truth. And the outside world cannot create my anxiety. Only I can. So what happens with you, Jem, is that you're just playing the numbers game. It just looks like there's more pressure because there's more people. But that's because you've made that up. Because you've made that up and it looks real to you, that's how you experience it. But as soon as you see that as not true, you won't experience that anymore. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, and I felt like saying, "And all right, you know, there's no need to have a go at me," because, you know, sometimes the ego is like, I'd almost forgotten that I'd asked that question, and I was like, "I'm fine, I'm absolutely fine."
Yeah.
But it is. I used to stand up and speak in front of hundreds of people for work, and I never got nervous at all. But this, because I think it feels more important or more personal. That's possibly why. But either way, it's all in my head, and we just have to get on with it. So,
yeah.
We've got some more questions, but we have just had Chef Jay request. So I'm going to bring you up, Chef Jay. Welcome to Unminding. I think we might have had you on before as well. Possibly.
Yeah, I think so. Last week. Hi, Chef Jay.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. I do have a question. So I was listening to what you were saying about the characters that we create, and that's something that I've tried to think about and be mindful of. And one of the things that I've done and noticed, which kind of leads me into an impasse, is when I notice myself saying or even thinking, part of me, fill in the blank, part of me wants to go, part of me wants to stay, right? It kind of shows that there's two different characters. There's a part of me that wants to go and be lively and fun and go to the party and be social, but then there's a part of me that wants to be, and then with that, I'm a outgoing, fun person, and then part of me wants to stay home, relax, read a book, and just have a quiet night. So I'm more introspective, and I can like craft that narrative. Now, when it's faced with a decision, like today I had a bit of a moment where I was like, part of me wants to say like, let's get together, and it's without going into a backstory, but I couldn't seem to find peace or find myself, in the sense of I didn't know what I truly wanted, right? I felt like it was between two characters that I had to sort of choose which one would govern my decision. So how do I maybe quiet the mind? Sorry, my dog. I think my dog was choking for a second.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
that's such a great question, and do you know what? I really resonate with it, but I don't see that as a problem. I know that I think it's just part of the human condition. It's I make arrangements to go out and party and have fun, and then maybe on the day I don't want to go, or I'm not doing something, and then I think, and then I get an invite and it should or I shouldn't. But what I tend to do is not take too much notice of what the mind is saying in those times. It's if I'm going to end up staying in, I'll stay in, and if I'm going to end up going out, I'm going to go out. But also, I don't know is also a decision. We look at like a decision has to be a yes or a no, but I don't know is perfectly fine. So just if we can get really comfortable with I don't know, we can live in that place until we do know. So I would see that more as getting comfortable with there's a deeper aspect of you that's guiding it, like this inner sat nav, and it's like hand it over to that. That's what I do. It's so last Saturday night I had a party to go to, and it was a little bit of a way away, and I knew I really, really wanted to go. Then suddenly my family were here, and someone else came round, and then we all decided to stay in. And I was like, oh, that would be really nice staying in with my family. But actually I was like, what do I want to do? And I was like, actually, no, I know I'm going to have a really good time at this party. I'm just going to get dressed up and go. And I did, and I had a really, really good time. And it was just following that kind of, just knowing that I would make the right decision. I think that's probably somewhere where I can sit quite comfortably. And if I go out and I make an arrangement and I don't like it, then it's not really a big deal. I can just come home. But if I've made a decision to stay home, I'm really comfortable with that. So again, getting comfortable with your decisions, getting comfortable with being in a space of not knowing, and know that we all have these aspects, this extrovert, introvert, this part of us that wants to go party, this part of us that wants to stay home, and just allow yourself to know that whatever you decide is perfect. We go back to that acceptance of what is. Like, okay, that's what I was meant to do. But again, don't try and force a decision. That place where you've been today with I don't know, fine, I don't know. Because then whatever you're meant to be doing will appear later. And it's that simplifying it. Again, when you're in the complexity, this is a great point as well. It's like, and it works for me. If I'm really complicating it, I know I'm not getting a decision. I'm in my mind. If I let go of that and it just gets simple, that's where my decision will come from. So we don't have to fight with these aspects. They're just natural aspects of the character of who we are. So is that helpful in any way?
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
I think being without putting too much pressure on making the decision sort of frees up the mind and just frees up the self to sort of flow into whatever's right. And then whatever decision you make, even being wholly comfortable with it, but if you do decide A or B, go or stay, when you're out, if it doesn't feel right, your mind and your body knows and remembers that for the next time when you're faced with a decision, what feels right. So the decision you make now is a reflection almost on the past decisions and how they've interacted with you too, right? Because the body and the mind knows. Not the mind, I don't know if I'm saying that right.
I would challenge that a little bit if that's okay, because
yeah, please.
And I think that it can look like that. But I think if we're in our personal mind, we can operate from that. Well, last time I didn't have, and then the body reacts to thought. But if we go to the deeper space, and we go to a decision from there, I think that's just wisdom in the moment. I don't think that, because the past isn't an equation that tells us the future. We just think it is. So again, it's like, what happened if I went out last night and had a shit time would have no bearing on whether I went out tonight and had an amazing time. It's two separate moments. It's two separate experiences. So what I'm saying is a little bit deeper is like, you don't have to make a decision, but a decision will be made. It's less personal than you thinking about the other times you've been out, or your body reacting to it, or that would be the personal mind doing that. We want to get as impersonal as possible. Well, that's where we're going to make the wisest decisions, is from the deepest aspect of ourselves, from that wisdom that we are, again, not from the overcomplication of the mind. So don't apply the past to the moment, don't apply the past to the future. Just be open and allow whatever you're meant to do, whatever you're meant to see, to come through you. Because again, the self that has to make a decision gets really caught up. The self that knows that a decision will come through doesn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess, well, what I was more so saying was to sort of be able to trust the process, because then how do you know if you're coming from your true self versus making a fear-based decision, or one of your characters is making the decision? Your ego is saying, yes, we're going to go out, and you're making a potentially harmful or toxic choice, which I guess there is no wrong choice, because that could lead you to the self-awareness that you need, right?
Perfect.
Is that what you're saying?
Bingo. Okay. Yeah. That's always going to lead you where you need to go. So just, trust that and allow that choice to come through you. That's a great question. Thank you.
It was a really good question and a really, really good answer as well. I think, when we overcomplicate anything, it becomes a problem. But you taught me something actually, Molls, and that was when I was getting stressed out with my Twitter, that every single thing is neutral. So this the way we're going to go yesterday, chef, there's no past, there's no relationship to it. Every single thing is all in your mind. And if you want to go, you want to go. If you don't, you don't. But there's nothing more or less really to it. But we do definitely overcomplicate things. But every situation is neutral until we attach something to it and give it energy and give it meaning. So that was really good. I loved that. Thank you. If anyone else has got any questions, then please request. But we're sort of coming to the end, and I did have a good one that I think a lot of people will resonate with. And somebody asked, how do I deal with worrying about the government taking our freedoms away?
I think at that point they have done, and they always have done. It isn't new. I think we're just more aware of that aspect of the physical world these days. So it would be about be aware, but I wouldn't worry. Worry is incredibly unhelpful. Worry isn't going to create any change. The more you see that the worry is created by your thought system and fear, really, if you're worried about it, you're probably projecting into the future. So if you can come back into the now, if you can see that everything is as it should be, that then if you have ideas about helping those situations, then they will come through you. You'll have ideas, you'll have inspiration, you'll see more clearly. But I would say it's let go of that thinking around fearful thinking is really, really unhelpful. It really doesn't serve any purpose. Sometimes I can work with a mum. It's like, but I worry so much about my kids. And I'm like, you realise that worry doesn't equal love. There's no equation for worry and love. It's like maybe they love them too much, or they love them more because they worry about them. And it's like, no, they're separate things. You have to kind of begin to see what thought is doing. So thought is creating this fear, but the fear isn't true. Okay, so come out of the emotion, come back into the logic, see what is happening, and see where you can make a difference. If you're scared, you're not going to do that. If you're calm, if you're in your logic, if you're in your peaceful self, then you're going to have great ideas about what to do and how to help humanity. But again, fear is it's part of the illusion that can really hold us back. It's somewhere that we can really be grabbed and really feel, because again, the feeling of fear, it's like, oh my God, I feel that, it must be true. You know, what you're feeling is your thinking. You're not feeling the government suppressing you. You're feeling your thinking around the government suppressing you. So if you can allow that to pass and you can just be, again, you can be dynamic. You can be in touch with your creative potential. You can see what you can do. And again, that, like, this project is that, like, on one level, Gem and I are here because we want people to not be scared. We want to wake them up. We want them to live life fully, and we want them to create the changes that they need to create in the world to make it a better place. So, you know, we all have our part to play. You may hear something on one of these calls and it will take away your fear and you'll see it differently. Like, we're always going to have the odd moment of fear. That's normal. But we don't really live in a state of fear. So if we take that away and we can live more fully, then what you share will have impact and be valuable to the world. So again, it's fear isn't helpful. Come out of that. See it for what it is. Come back into life. Fear can't exist in the present moment when you're truly here and now. If you're in a timeless moment, fear can't exist. Okay, so come back to there. Come back to here. You know, sit, be. Get in touch with your being. Yeah? Peace is the true reality. We just don't see it. Okay, so again, it's back to what I said, I think, at the very beginning of the call. Come home. Come home to who you are, and life will appear differently. It's not that you need to change the world for life to appear differently. You have to first come home to who you are. Then you can go out and do whatever you need to do. And again, it's this project is part of that collective consciousness, waking up the world. That's what we're all here for. You know, it becomes, again, then it's great. You're going to feel better, but what difference can you make? You know, that's where the juice of life is. That there isn't another. There is only us in disguise. So let's help as many people as we can.
When you say, I only heard you say it a while ago, but about it being a cosmic joke, it is the best definition of this experience ever. It really, really is. Like, every so often it's like, oh, bloody hell. Bring me back. Yeah. It's so amazing. Okay, well, last question.
Quick one.
Okay. So we've got two, but I'll try and pick the best one. Can you ever be truly free of your mind?
You can. Can you ever be true of your mind? I think you can have. Now, I do believe there are some people that have an enlightenment experience that is so deep that they are probably free from their minds. But I only think I know one person that's had that experience. And yeah, he's a very interesting person. He's a friend of mine. But I think out of anybody, I would say he does. I think for the rest of us, I'm not saying that's not possible. It's possible for anyone, but he's the only one I know. But I think for the rest of us, yes, but it comes and goes. Again, this call is freedom of mind. Sometimes we are free of our mind. Sometimes we're caught up in our mind. Sometimes we're free of our minds. Sometimes we're caught up in our minds. And it's that's the experience. But what's beautiful about this understanding is we get to see that both are fine. So could you say that you're free of your mind if you're not bothered by your mind, even when it's playing up? Yeah, possibly. So I don't think there's a definitive answer, but I think we all have the potential, but we with this understanding. What did I say the other day to a client? Yeah, you're not going to get with this understanding and this exploration. You've got a lot more chance of having a freer mind than you might if you didn't look in this direction. And I said the other day to a client, you ain't going to catch the bus if you're not at the bus stop. So the conversation here is like being at the bus stop. You're much more likely to be able to explore and experience a freer mind by looking in the direction of where the mind comes from than if you're looking into the content of your mind. So again, the potential is here and now, and I think these conversations really make it more available to us. What do you think, Jem?
I think that everything is perfect and there is nothing to worry about. I'm probably talking to myself here and to everyone else, obviously, but everything really is okay. And it's always been okay. It's just our thinking that's not. And when we realize that, it's a really wonderful place to be. And even getting caught up, when you come out of that, it's a lot quicker and the world becomes more beautiful because it's just like, wow, it really is all me. Anything shit I create, basically. But anything good I create, on the other hand, as well. But it makes keeping on an even keel and keeping life nice and simple and wonderful a lot easier.
Perfect. And there's a before we finish, and I'll let you do housekeeping at the end, there's a quote from Sri Ramana Maharishi, and it is, "The world is unhappy because of its ignorance of its true being. True human nature is happiness. Happiness is innate in the true being. Man's pursuit of happiness is an unconscious pursuit for the true being." And I love that, because what he's pointing to there is all our pursuits of happiness in the world are actually disguised, because what we're really doing is looking for what's inside of us, and we're just probably looking in the wrong direction. We're just getting lost. So everything that we look outside of the world to for happiness, actually, we just have to come home to find it.
And home is here, right? Right here.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a really brilliant episode. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Well, I've just shared the tweet above, which links you to the website. We are also on Spotify, Fountain. So go and check us out on there. Listen to our previous episodes. Please follow us and give us all the stars that you think we deserve, because we've just started really pushing being seen outside of Twitter. So we started this for crypto people, but we really want as many people to hear it as possible. So yeah, we'd really appreciate it if you would have a look, share with any friends and family. This is a free project, so if you want to support us, there's ways of donations that you can see on the website. Any suggestions, any topics that you want us to cover in the future is really, really important, because we're doing this for you guys. So if there's something in the community that we need to look at, then please tell us, and we'll cover that. But yeah, it's been wonderful to have you all here, and DMs are always open. We've got our Telegram group. And anything you need, we're here, and we'll be back next week. And just, thank you for being here. Thank you, Molls. And tonight was brilliant.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Gems. Thank you for co-hosting. And yeah, please subscribe on Spotify or Apple, or whatever you're on. That really helps us. Please share this episode. The recording will be up. Once this is over, it goes into a recording. So please share that and tweet about us, and let's get the message out there. It's a very important one for our world right now, but we really appreciate anybody that comes on and anyone that listens to the recording, and please reach out to us if you need to.
And final note, if there is anybody that thinks that they would like to work with Molls sort of on a one-to-one basis, then just reach out. This is obviously what she does as her job, and she's bloody good at it, obviously. So thank you, everybody.
Okay,
and love you all lots. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Love you, everybody. Bye.